Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
6 days a week to board up vacant homes in Detroit. We'll tell you how they're doing.
Any day without rain is a win, but our next shot of rain is not far off. We'll time it out coming up.
But we begin with the battle over Aretha Franklin's massive estate as it heats up in court, and now we're learning even more money could be at stake.
It's rumored to be worth $50 million, but today in court there was word new blockbuster Hollywood projects with Aretha's name on them could be in the works.
Which means the estate, or the estimate on the estate, could only go up as family members fight to wrestle over control of it. Let's get to Rod Maloney, who was in the courtroom today. Let's throw in the recent development of those handwritten will pages that were found in a couch. The judge has a lot on her plate here, Rod.
She does, Devin, and you know, she wants to go slow because they got to be really careful. That handwritten will is going to be an issue, but it's probably something that will get solved here before too long. The thing is that it looks like there's a whole lot more money coming into this estate, which should make the whole family very happy. Half a dozen attorneys and some of the Franklin family showed up for today's hearing. There was some thought that a ruling on her handwritten wills would come, and it didn't. Aretha's attorney David Barrett updated Judge Jennifer Callahan on progress trying to settle on non-binding facilitation. They agreed to try and make informal agreements on how the estate's going to get divided. And then there's the subject of Aretha's passing boosting her singing career.
On a weekly basis, we receive multiple requests for licenses for her songs and her likeness,
which makes the estate more money. And we also learned on top of the recent Aretha documentary Amazing Grace, Imagine Entertainment's Ron Howard wants to do a genius TV program on her, and MGM wants to do a biopic, meaning still more money for Aretha's estate. But as happens in large estates like this one, there's not full agreement. Attorney Charlene Glover, representing Aretha's youngest son, wants him in charge of the estate, not his cousin.
Ms. Franklin was pretty specific in terms of who she wanted to serve as the personal representative, which is her son, Kel Franklin. She made that known in all of her wills.
Afterward, probate lawyer Charles Smith, representing one of Aretha's other sons, came out and said,
"It'll all get worked out. Time solves all problems. Money solves all problems."
But he's kind of acting like it's not a big deal here because he is the Isley brothers' attorney. He told us that the Isley brothers said that they would take care of the family, or at least they would watch over it in this process. They said, he said that they told Aretha that they would do that, and so that's why he is here. He also said that, well, heck, Elvis's estate was only about zero when he died, but it's now worth $300 million all these years later, and they say with Aretha's estate, this could likely very happen with her as well, so we're just going to have to watch and see. They're back in court in July. Back to you.
We heard him say that money solves all problems. I think some people would argue the opposite, that it causes all the problems, and we saw this get very emotional today.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't think I've ever seen this, Devin. An attorney got up and started talking about his case and about Aretha, his relationship with her. He started choking up in court, trying to make his case. Like I said, I've never seen that before. And this from an attorney who Aretha wrote about in her handwritten will that she didn't think was particularly good. So it was a fascinating day, to say the least.
It is complicated. All right, Rod, we'll continue to follow it.
All right, we're following some breaking news right now, just in from Toronto, where 2 people are shot and hurt during a massive victory rally for the Toronto Raptors. Police say their wounds are serious, but not life-threatening. Meanwhile, 2 people have been arrested in connection to those shootings. After the shots rang out, festivities for the NBA champions were briefly suspended. However, speeches resumed shortly afterward.
So disheartening to hear. Now to new developments in the serial killer case that's gripped Detroit's east side and the one ongoing issue that ties many of the attacks together.
Unsecured vacant homes that dot the landscape across that part of the city, and now both neighbors and the city are getting to work. They want to change that. Priya Mann shows us why this is now a top priority.
On average, crews have been boarding up about 50 homes a day in Detroit, which is welcome news for churches and organizations that are rehabbing communities, bringing families back into homes that were once vacant.
This is one of the houses that we have rehabbed so far. We're in the process of rehabbing this one as well as that one right there.
Pastor Antonio Ward and church members from Deliverance and Praise have been renovating vacant homes on the east side since 2017.
You can come together and collaborate on one project and rehab and rebuild the community and make a difference.
Today, Detroit police and city crews were on Hickory Street inspecting vacant homes and boarding them up.
The residents, the neighbors, they feel more secure if an empty house next to them is boarded.
Working 6 days a week, crews have boarded up a staggering 19,000 homes in the last year and a half.
It's very nice that DPD is partnering with us and that they're clearing the houses and going through the houses in hopes that we don't find anything, but if we do, we can bring closure to a family.
Since the case of a suspected serial killer first broke, the task of boarding up homes has become personal for some workers.
You have neighbors telling us, I appreciate what you're doing and things of that nature, so they see what we're trying to do, and that solidifies my job even more.
A family of 5 moved into this home 2 years ago. Next month, another family is expected to move into the home next door. Signs of progress as the city, police, and everyday Detroiters work together to build safer neighborhoods.
Once you reestablish the homes, it makes people feel more safer and you have more people around, and it just does a lot for the community.
And Pastor Ward says it takes about 9 months to completely renovate one of these vacant homes, replacing the windows, the siding, installing furnaces and hot water tanks, and of course cleaning the home before a family moves in. He says he's excited by all the progress he's seeing. Reporting live, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Priya, I believe you said the city has boarded up 19,000 homes in the last year and a half. Do you have a number of how many homes are left to be boarded up?
Yeah, the city says they have about 1,000 homes on the east side that remain to be boarded up, and once that's completed, they will then move over to the west side where there's another about 1,000 homes that they need to board up. But amazing progress when you consider where they were just a year and a half ago.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks, Priya. Tonight, neighbors are rushing to get sandbags in place after high water at the mouth of the Detroit River started spilling over seawalls.
We've got video here from the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood. You see the water just pouring in, making its way down the street. Let's get out to Larry Spruill. Larry, even though we've watched so much of this along the east side for weeks now, this caught a lot of folks off guard.
Good evening, Devin and Kimberly. Now, they say the water really came out of nowhere. So here's what's happening. The canal is just across the street behind these homes, and it's full of water. So the water is coming over the canal into the driveways of these homes, into the street, and covering the entire area. Take a look, for example, it's swallowing. You can see drivers are having a hard time driving through this area just behind that burgundy truck. Take a look at that gold car with nowhere to go. The street looks more like a gushing river. Water everywhere with nowhere to go, flooding anything in sight.
It's coming from the canals back here.
For neighbors like Michael Seeger, it's a race against time.
It's actually pretty crazy seeing. You can see this, it's all flooded. It's like a swamp.
The only thing he can do is grab as many sandbags as he can.
Right now we're putting probably around 500 sandbags in this back area to completely stop the water from flowing in. We need more.
But Mike says even that is not a guarantee.
Might not stop it, but it'll slow it down from reaching the house and destroying the foundation.
A foundation he's trying to protect, but that's getting pretty expensive.
So the city really pretty much, they just own the canal. They don't, so if there's any issues like with the seawall, that's on the property owners. And the seawall to replace would be about $50,000.
And with the water not backing down anytime soon, all he can do is stack more sandbags and depend on a higher power.
That's all you can really do at this point is just pray.
So as you can see, the drains is somewhat working in this neighborhood, which is helping out the situation. But the good news is neighbors say that the city is providing free sandbags, so they're able to do as little and much as they can. But the bad news is there's more rain on the way. We're live on the east side tonight. Larry Spruill, Local 4.
Let's get more on that now as Kim's standing by with Ben.
Yeah, here with Ben now. The high water levels and all the rain that we've seen, we could really use a break, but
we could just duplicate today, it would be great. Unfortunately, yes, there is more rain coming. The good news is it's not a ton. This is what we're expecting Wednesday and Thursday. generally about a ½ inch, maybe as much as an inch down here in our south zone. You start fast forwarding into the weekend, and the combined totals for the week range anywhere from about 1 to 2 inches. Remember, that's spread over 6 to 7 days here, so it's not going to be a ton of water. The other good news is we don't really see any strong easterly winds that would be pushing that water further on shore, so that is good news. Limited sunshine tomorrow, some rain midweek as we talked about, but even more of that is coming for the weekend. We'll look at the prospects of a Saturday-Sunday washout and a sneak peek at your fireworks forecasts, all coming up in a few minutes, guys.
Okay, Ben. A 25-year-old man is charged with attempting to kidnap a 3-year-old little girl.
This is Stevie Hutchins, charged with attempted kidnapping and child enticement. The mother and her daughter were inside the Star Party store on Woodward and Auburn in Pontiac on Saturday morning when it's alleged Hutchins tried to grab the little girl. His first attempt was not successful. Police say he came back, though, and tried a second time. The mother held on tight, and then the man ran off. He was found nearby, and he was arrested, and thus the charges. A burst pipe prompted an evacuation today at the Lincoln Hall of Justice. Officials say a broken steam line was the reason behind it. Court had to be closed. Employees had to be evacuated. No report of anyone being injured, though. Deputy Court Administrator Richard Smart says Wayne County is working on fixing it.
Expect some good news at the gas pump today as the average price for a gallon of gas in Michigan drops by 12 cents. AAA reports the average statewide price right now is $2.63. Metro Detroit, meanwhile, has one of the highest average prices per gallon in the state, sitting at $2.71. And the least expensive gas in Michigan can be found up in Grand Rapids at $2.49 per gallon.
He says all he wants is to clear his name, and he says Grosse Pointe Woods police just won't let it go.
New tonight why he says race had everything to do with him being arrested for trying to rob a bank. Here's Nick.
A fascinating look inside the future of what the automotive industry could be. Vehicles that are specifically designed to what we think we'll want in the next 20 or 30 years.
All right, Nick, but first, even the mayor says it was unacceptable. Brand new fallout tonight after an alarming arrest by Phoenix police, and that is next.